Error. Shutting down.
Walk, don't run. Use the handrails. Walk, don't run. Use the handrails.
Neon Temple simulation reboot in progress. Live stream initiated. Stabilizing environment.
It kind of goes back. Things. We also got people ham radio licenses last year. I believe Coach Eyes has something cool cooked up for you guys for the end of June, dealing with some radio stuff, so stand by on that one, but I think you'll like it.
Yeah, I know they're also, I think, maybe doing a study group. Don't quote me on that. I've heard talk.
Yeah, there's talks of a study group for ham radio as well for those of you that are curious but don't have one. That is not finalized.
Yeah.
I'll let Tremere handle that.
That's what I heard.
Yep, so that should be happening. That's what's coming up here soon. We are still looking for speakers for June and July, so if you have done some of the Prepper Month kind of stuff before, maybe you have a unique skill or talent or hobby you would like to share, let us know. If not, July is open. We need people to talk about normal cyber stuff and nerd stuff, all right? That is really all I'm going to say and hold him up, 'cause I know he's over here dancing.
We don't have
Oh, it's all
audio,
good.
so.
No audio, I just talked for like 5 minutes for no reason.
I mean,
Do we actually have no audio?
well,
No, I think the power probably just dropped.
which one?
Is it?
Is it not going through the dock? it wouldn't be live events without us having technical difficulties at least once every now and then, right? All good? All right, we got to figure it out. So I will stop running my mouth and I will let you guys watch Protect Your Neck, an intro to securing your Linux and your J's with Jackson.
All right, yeah. So, first off, who am I in case you've never met me? My name is Jackson. I've been daily driving Linux for around 7 years now, and I participated in a competition called Cyber Patriot where I only secured Linux that entire time, those 3 years, and I have a couple of CompTIA certs. So, yeah, that's about it. So this is kind of the outline for the talk. We're going to go down each of these like topic by topic, and we're going to start off with the file system. So first thing we should talk about is files and their permissions. So everything in Linux is a file. Your files are files, your folders are files, even your hardwares are files. So in those files, there are 3 permission groups with 3 permissions in them. So there's those 3 permission groups is the owner group, or the person who created the file, and then the group that owner is associated with, and then everybody else. And those 3 permissions are read, write, and execute. So read, read the file, and then you write to the file, and then you can execute the file. You can declare those 2 ways. You can either do those symbolically, or with numbers. So if you did them symbolically, you would either put, like an R, or a W, or an X, and these are the corresponding numbers to these. So 1 would represent X, and then 4 would represent R, and then 2 would represent W. So if read, write, and execute. So if we hop over here, I should have a demo file here. So if we see the default permissions, the default permissions here are read, write for the owner, read, write again for the group, and then read for everybody else. So changing these, we'd actually use a tool called chmod. And so if you are, to want, like, say, only give myself read, write permissions and then screw everybody else, you would do 600. So the 6 here, if we go back, would represent both the read and the write, because read being 4 and then write being 2, 4 plus 2 equals 6. So that would be 6. And then 0 would be for the group permission and everybody else. So doing that on the file, sorry. I would have read, write, and everybody else would have nothing. So coming back to that, there is this tool called Chatter, or change attribute. So what that does, it can only do 2 things. It can either make the file immutable, it can make the file immutable, which means that you cannot delete the file or edit the file in any way, including if you have sudo permissions. So if you do that same file, we can use Chatter, then you would do a +i to make it immutable, and then it would be a -i to remove it. And so like that, so if I try to remove the file that I myself just created, it's not going to work. And then we can remove that as well with the Chatter and -i. Like that, and then I can remove the file. There's also another mode called append only. So append only, you still can't delete the file, but you can make changes to it. And so you would do that with Chatter A for append, and then there we go. So I can still go in and make changes to the file, just I can't delete it. And you can actually list out those Chatter permissions with a ls chat or ls adder for listing out permissions. And then if I do that on the same file, it would show that there's append and then append and then immutable, or immutable is not listed on there since I took it away. Let me add that back. Yeah. Oh, that's the wrong ones. Yep, and then there you go. The immutable and the append only are right there. And then there's a thing called umask. So umask is used to change the it's used to change the default permissions for each file that a user would create on the system. So how it actually works is, since the default permissions are 666, or read, write, read, write, read, write. Oh, sorry, did you? Oh, okay, sorry. But since they're read, write, read, write, read, write, what you do if you were to use umask, right? You go sudo umask, and then it actually would subtract the permissions you put. So you can't put like 777 and then have, oh, sorry, you can't put 777 and then have everything read, write, and execute. It's just not going to allow you to do that. What instead you would do is you would do 0 for like for yourself, right? If you don't want to change any like if you don't want to change any of the default permissions for yourself, you would do 0 and say you wanted to take away the read permissions. You would just do 2. So now everybody else, the group and everybody else who didn't create the file, would not have the write permissions. And then, oh, that's weird. Hold on. Where is umask? Okay, there we go, yeah. So now if I were to, yeah, see, everybody else just has read now. So moving on. So files continued. All files are not made equal. There's a handful of files that you would really want to protect, and those kind of down the list would be etc password. So the first thing with etc password, this is where all your users are stored, and their user IDs and their group IDs. So if we go in cat etc password, right, you can see here that each like account, including service accounts in the machine, are listed. There's my user right there. Each new user that you create by yourself will start with 1,000 for both the user and the group ID, and then it would just go on from there. Like it'd be 1,001 next, and then 1,002 for the next one. Yeah, that's really all there is in etc password. Etc shadow, this is where your actual like password hashes are stored. Oh. Yeah, this is where your actual password hashes are stored. So if you can memorize the hash, then you can break it. But yeah, this is just where they're all stored. An important thing here, if you see an exclamation mark just anywhere, that means that that specific hash and that specific password associated with that hash would be locked. And so that user cannot like use their password for any kind of like permissions or really anything at all. And then the next one is etc group. So etc group. So yeah, etc group. This will show all the groups you have and each user in the group. So yeah, sorry, I forgot what I was saying. But yeah, so each user, they'll also have a group when you first like create them. So if I were to add like a new user here, right? If I did user add and then just, I just did Jackson, right? Now if I go back into the etc group file and the etc password file as well, you would see me created right there. Oh, okay, yeah, sorry. You'd see me created right there, but that is the group that's associated with my user. And then etc G shadow. So etc G shadow is the same thing as etc shadow, but for groups. So each group actually does have a password, and that password is used. That password is only used to like authenticate to the group if you were to use the command new group. So if I was my user here and I wanted to go to like the Docker group or something, I would type in new group and then Docker, and then it would prompt me with a password. I don't know that password, so I can't actually put myself in that group. But yeah, that's just how you would do it. And then, okay. And then a very important file, etc sudoers. This is where you declare who can use elevated permissions and what specific elevated permissions they can use. You do not want to edit it with just like Vim or Nano by default, because if you do like something wrong with the syntax, you will be locked out of sudo privileges forever on your system. So you use vissudo to edit. Then it'll drop you into like a Nano kind of thing. And then here you can edit your different permissions and stuff. So this root user, he has access to everything because he's root. But if you wanted to only specifically give them permissions for like a script or like a certain command, you would do it here with the with my little updater user. So this no password thing, that clarifies that they do not need a password to use this. They can just run it as is if they use sudo. And then that's only the app-get command, and then, or the app-get update command, and then the app-get upgrade command. And then the last file is your boot config. Oh, what's up?
So what's the difference between bysudo and using just by vim or by?
Oh, yeah. So with visudo, right, if I were to make like, just like if I was to do something wrong and like not comment it out, say like I did this, right? If I saved this how it was in like Vim or Nano, then I would just be locked out because it wouldn't be able to read the file because of that syntax error right there. But if I was to try and save it with visudo, it yells at me. It says, now what? And then it would prompt me with either exiting and saving or just going back and removing the syntax.
Another question.
Yep.
You were saying in Etsy, in your shadow file that the passwords are locked.
Mm-hmm.
How do you lock the password?
Oh, yeah. Here, I'm getting that.
Okay.
Oh, actually, here, I can just actually show that now. So you would lock it. There's two ways to actually lock it. There's a lot of ways to do the same thing on Linux, but the way I like to do it is just using the passwd command. So you would do sudo passwd and then -l for lock, and then you would put in whatever user. So like if I just wanted to do my little shitter account, then there, he's locked. He can't do nothing anymore. And then to unlock him, it would just be -u. Oh. -u for unlocking. Okay. Oh, well, yeah, he didn't have a password originally, so didn't really do nothing. But yeah.
Are these files you picked OS agnostic? Are they going to exist everywhere or just on?
They're going to exist on every Linux system.
Is Chatter also included on every?
Chatter? I think so. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if Red Hat did anything different. They do everything different. But yeah, and then the last file is your boot config. That one kind of like tells your system what to do at boot. And yeah, so that one's pretty important. I can actually show that here. Where was it? Oh, sorry. Yeah. This is everything this little VM will do at boot. Yeah. So what about mounts? So like I said, that even your hardware is a file in Linux. So every time you would mount like a USB or like another hard drive, you would mount it through this file called etcfstab. And within etcfstab, you can actually put in some options. Oh, yeah, you can put in some options with etcfstab. So that file system, only that file system specifically, will do different things. So noexec, this one will prevent, this one will prevent running direct binaries in a file system. All that means is like if I had a script, this would just not work. And the reason that would not work is because this little like ./, that's how you run things, or like run different scripts in Linux. But if I were to like declare like a specific like, I'm forgetting the word, but like thing you would run, like if I was to do bash here, this would still work. It's just ./ that doesn't work. And then no SUID and SGID. So I actually forgot to talk about this originally, but these specifically, they're not just the okay, I'm sorry, I'm losing myself here, but these are actually other permissions beyond read, write, and execute. So if I'm to go over here, and I know specifically that dash bin, oh no, I'm sorry, dash bin. Oh. Okay. Maybe it's just dash bin. Yeah, there we go. So right here, where the execute permission should be, there is a S. So all that really means is any user can run that with sudo permissions. or run password with sudo permissions on their own account. So this would only affect their own account. So I can't change the password for this user, but I can change it for mine if I just did passwd. And then there's also, yep.
So something to note, with SUID, it's always going to run it as the owner.
Yes,
right?
the owner of the file.
It's
Not
actually-
root, but sorry, yeah, sorry.
What was that?
No, I'm sorry.
It's actually passwd itself that is doing that check.
Mm.
That's just something important to note.
Okay, thank you. Okay. And then moving on. Then the last one is no dev. So what no dev would do in the mount options is basically all the files on that specific file system, they would just like read as blank to the actual computer. And so like you wouldn't be able to see anything in those files. Here I can actually show that. Oh, okay, that's not what I wanted. Okay, sorry, but like here, if I, there you go, if I'm going into etcfs tab, you can actually, another thing about etcfs tab, you can actually put these like specific directories that are in your root file, you can mount those as kind of like partitions to use those partition options. So you can actually do that with the temp directory, and that's what I saw a lot when I was researching this. But like you can go into etcfs tab here. Oh. And you can actually, I think it's like tempfs, yeah. And then you would declare where it is. And then you declare the specific, like, I forget what it's called, but like the specific like file system it's using, because Linux, they have multiple ones. There's ext4, xfs, and btrfs. Those are like 3 of the main ones. And then here's where you can declare the options. So you can do, what was it, like no exec, right here. Or no, I'm sorry, I need a comma. Yeah. And then this is where you can do no exec, or not. Okay. All right, it's not. I don't think I'm doing it correctly, but yeah. So moving on. Users and groups with password policy. So these specific files just relate to password policy inside your system. So there's login.defs, and so all this does is will provide new accounts with password aging. It does not apply to accounts that already existed prior to you configuring it. So to actually do that, you would use the change command, not change, but change. There it is. And so like for my account that I already created, the shitter account, if I wanted to set the expiry date for like 30 days from now, I would just do like this, and then there you go. Now that account, or that account's password will expire in 30 days, not the account itself. And so if I'm actually going to go into .defs, there you go. You can actually see it. It's down here. There you go. So this is the maximum password days. You can set that to whatever you want. You can, like, I don't know, look in the NIST standards to see what the recommended one is. Then password minimum days as well, so they can't just be frantically changing the passwords everywhere. And then how old it would be when it warns the user on next login. And then PAM. So PAM is the pluggable authentication module. Now there's 25 separate PAM modules, but only 3 really apply to passwords, and that would be password quality, password history, and then PAM Unix. So password quality, that one, that'll be like the complexity of your passwords. Like how long they need to be, if they need to use specific characters and whatnot, and just everything else with that. And then password history is really just everything login.defs did, but in PAM. And then PAM Unix is more of like a overarching thing. So that'll, sorry, I'm having a brain fart, but it'll actually use like everything in the Linux system. Sorry, that's not a good explanation, but yeah. And then there's 4 different PAM options. like within PAM, when you go and edit it, there's a requisite, required, sufficient, and optional. So when like a user would log in, if you have multiple different PAM modules set up, it'll go through them one by one. So what requisite does is if that one fails, like you either logged in more than 3 times or like your password wasn't like up to snuff, then it'll just stop right there. Required, it will do that and like still like say something, but it will continue with the other modules. Sufficient, if you just do like that one and maybe you have 4, it would just be like a one and done thing, and then you're good to go. And optional is optional. Like you don't need to do that.
Real quick.
Yep.
Just to clarify, for people that aren't super familiar, these are for multiple authentication methods.
Yes. 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 Yes.
So, let's say on your laptop, you have biometrics and you have your password. That's how you decide, like, okay, a fingerprint is enough. If the fingerprint fails, then we'll fall back to password, etc. Use these to set that up.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then user and privilege management. So I already said earlier that you can lock accounts with PassWD, but you can also do it with user mod. These two, they just do the same thing, but that would only lock the password. You can still like change into the user, or the user can still log in. And to actually make that not happen, you can use user mod -s, and then you can declare that they have no login. So what that'll actually do is if I go back to the Etsy password file, you see how it'll declare either no login or your shell. That's all that command does, is it'll just go in automatically and then change from bin shell to user sbin and then no login. And then now this login, or I'm sorry, this user cannot log in anymore.
Question.
Yep.
So if I land on a host, and the person who's defending that host is using the commands you just demonstrated, will that keep me from laterally moving into, service accounts or daemon accounts on Linux?
Yes, I think so. And then, yeah, so I already talked about editing the sudoers file with vissudo. And there's more PAM modules that apply more to just like users and like when they're logging in and stuff. So there's PAM fail lock. Oh, so that one will just like if you reach a certain number of tries, it'll just lock you out. That actually happened to me when I was testing earlier. And PAM time. I'm having another brain fart. But if I can remember here, okay, I'm sorry, I actually don't remember what that one does, and the same goes for PAM access. But yeah, sorry. And then next here is SSH hardening. So if you have a system that's like open to the internet, this one will probably be most important because you're going to be using SSH a lot, unless you have something else set up like VNC or remote desktop. And you can actually do all these hardening things inside the SSH config. So yeah, the one thing you want to do, this one right here goes for both SSH and the system as a whole. You want to disable the root login. You shouldn't be using root to do really anything. You should only have like maybe specific users with specific permissions, especially if they're service users. And you only want like each of those accounts to have like as minimum sudo privileges as possible, just to like do their job or whatever they want. And then next is fail to ban. So fail to ban is actually the only one in here that you're not going to set up within the SSH config file itself. So what fail to ban does is it will read different log files in your system, and then if it was like SSH, or it'll look to see if they're SSH, and then it will block that specific user and then that host that's trying to connect via SSH to you if like they reach a certain number of tries. Then you can also whitelist specific users. This one's more for just like users on the machine. Again, if you have like custom like service users, you probably don't want them logging in with SSH anywhere. So you can actually whitelist it so only specific users can use SSH. And then, yep, set maximum authentication attempts. Yep.
Would you recommend disabling SSH for localhost?
For localhost?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Because Well, how I heard that question is like if you're binding it to localhost.
No. So
Or-
if I'm landing on a host and I SSH root at localhost, should I be allowed to do that?
No, you should not. No, you should lock the root account. Sorry, I thought you were talking about sockets. But moving on. You want to turn off X11 forwarding and TCP forwarding. So TCP forwarding is the more prominent one because there's a tool called SSH Huddle that will actually use like TCP forwarding as more of like a pivot point. So your machine could use an SSH connection to run like other commands within like your network that this machine is actually like on. And so you'd want to disable TCP forwarding. And then for X11 forwarding, really the same thing that TCP forwarding does, except that's for like different like X11 commands. And X11, it's a compositor. So there's two really like main compositors on Linux. There's X11 and Wayland. X11 is older, but like it's more, so it's more legacy. It's more stable. That's what everything is using right now. But Wayland is the newer one. And that's about it. And you want to use SSH keys instead of passwords. That's just more secure. So SSH keys, they're asymmetric keys. And so you have a private key and a public key. So you would use the private key to decrypt everything that the public key encrypts. And that would be like how you would authenticate and log in. Then there's another thing called SSHL. It's actually not called SSHL anymore. It's more like honeypot SSH. But so, it's actually, no, it isn't here. Sorry, I just skipped over it. You do want to change the default port from 22 to just like one of the 50,000 other ports that are up there. So like you can change 22 to like 40,268 or something. And then that'll help anybody who's using like Shodan or another like mass like scanning tool, who's just like trying to like look for a bunch of computers with like low-hanging fruit. So that one will just like bump you up in the attractivity chain for like any like attackers who are just looking to do anything. But what SSHL does, it'll post up like a fake like SSH looking thing, so it'll look the same as like anytime you'd SSH into a machine, but it will just auto deny you. No matter what password you put, even if it's correct, it'll just keep auto denying you, and it'll log everything and then put it in a file somewhere. And then, so AppArmor and SE Linux. So these two, they do the same thing. They do mandatory access control compared to discretionary access control, which is the normal on Linux. So discretionary access control is the file owner would control all the file permissions like I did earlier, and then root can just do whatever it wants. So mandatory access control would be taking something like AppArmor or SE Linux and having them as like the head honcho instead of root. So they actually control all the permissions, including root. So you can lock root out of stuff if you want to with these two. And then you should use AppArmor on everything that's not Red Hat, because Red Hat actually developed SE Linux, and so that's like their flagship with that. So that would be like Red Hat Enterprise or any Fedora or any Fedora like derivatives or distros. Yeah, so AppArmor. So AppArmor uses profiles for configuration. So what that means, or what that looks like in practice, is that there'll be like specific files in AppArmor, or specific folders in AppArmor that will pertain to different stuff, and you can edit the permissions in those files, and then they would have their permissions set like that. So there's actually one that I have right here. User Espen. So this is what it would look like for the command traceroute. This is like the whole like permission file. So down here you see it includes these things. These are called configuration rules. There's 5. There's file access, network, capability, deny, and abstractions. So abstractions, that one you saw that listed up here. That's like really like anything else that doesn't fall into these 4 categories. So file access, that would be like what files it's allowed to access, and then the different permissions, like we did with chmod. And then network, that would be any like if it like was reaching out to another host or anything, like that's where you would edit all the networking permissions. And then capability. So what capability is that's how, or capability, just like as a thing, it'll take all the sudo permissions and it'll actually like break them up into little other things. that you can use just for like either specific users or Docker containers or AppArmor. And then deny, that's just like denying things, just outright. And so if we go back, yeah, this is the whole AppArmor file. You can see right here it's able to use this, but it's only able to read this, and then but it can read, execute, and then these other ones just in or for the traceroute database. And then SE Linux. So with SE Linux, instead of having different profiles or the different directories to enforce things, it puts labels on everything. So it'll put labels on files, processes, and users. So those labels then pertain to the different permissions you can have with SE Linux. And then there's three. Sorry. And then there's three different modes as well for SE Linux. Oh, I actually hold on. Yeah, I didn't even talk about that. I'm sorry. But on AppArmor, yeah. So AppArmor, there's two different modes. There's complain and enforce. So what complain does is that will really just like log everything and then complain. And then enforce will actually enforce your permissions that you set. So if I was to go back here, and for this traceroute one specifically, I could do AA-status. Oh, sorry. Yeah, there we go. And then for, where was it? Actually, I think I can just do it with this one right here. Yeah. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Actually, I have a thing for this. There we go. So you can do A status, which is what I just did. So it'll show all the different AppArmor profiles that are configured, and if they're in either complain or the enforce mode. And so to actually enforce something, you would go like A enforce. Oh, well, I have to sudo permissions. Enforce, and then you would go. I'm sorry. Let's see, AppArmor-D, and then for the same traceroute one that I showed off, spin traceroute. There you go. Now those permissions that were set in the file are enforcing, and if you just want to put it back into complain mode, you just take out the enforce and you do complain. Oh, that's complain, but yeah. And then so SE Linux, it labels everything. There's three different modes. There's enforcing, which there's enforcing, which is the same as enforce on AppArmor. There's permissive, which does the same thing as complain, and then there's disabled. You don't ever want to disable them and then just like forget about it, because then that's just all like your access control gone. It is harder to learn from what I saw. I haven't actually ever used SE Linux as like a precursor, because I've never had a Red Hat or Fedora system. But I think you can get more mileage out of it, because specifically just because of the labels. It's more like compartmentalized, so you can set the specific permissions for the things you need. And kernel hardening. So most of the kernel hardening will actually be done like during boot in the etc syscontrol file. So if we go over, right, there's actually a syscontrol command too. So you can actually look at the different parameters with syscontrol with -A. And yeah, there's a lot of these. I don't know all of them or off the top of my head to explain them, but if you look up like just specific ones, or for like, that would be for hardening. I think I have a file here. Yeah. Right. This I just asked Claude like what would be the specific ones for hardening. Then if I was just to like copy and paste this into my syscontrol file, or I think like that. Now to do this, I just Okay, that didn't really work for me. But if I was just to do that, and then I would do sudo sys control-p, that would persist them. But since it's not there, because I couldn't do it. But that would persist them across all boots. And then yeah, firewall and network hardening. So services that don't need to be like have access to like even like your private network or a public network, they should be bound to localhost. So what that would mean, in like a kind of like practical example, is if somebody were to do like an Nmap scan on your machine and you had like a database, right, like an SQL database bound to 0.0.0.0, which is everything, they would be able to see that. But if you could make it work with only localhost and then have the other applications that actually need it just talk back to localhost, you could actually just like hide it from the rest of the computers on your network. And then for firewalls, you want to use UFW. UFW is uncomplicated firewall, and it's literally just a front end for stuff like IP tables or a new NF tables. So yeah, that's really easy to use. You could just go like this. All right, let me clear the screen. Then deny all. Oh, okay. But yeah, no, so that command would like deny all traffic coming in or out, or you can do it with specific ports too. So if I wanted to deny like FTP, HT21, and then there we go, rule updated. And then if I wanted to allow it again, I would just do allow. Very, very uncomplicated. And yeah, so it's best to use egress filtering when setting things. So if the normal kind of like how to do things is you would block all incoming traffic, that's traffic coming towards your machine, and you would allow all outgoing traffic to be traffic like coming out of your machine. But if somebody were to, get into your system and then run a reverse shell, then they're able to actually connect back to their machine because it's really your machine connecting to them and not the other way around. So if you use egress filtering, that's just blocking really everything except the specific things you need. So so say you only needed SSH on your system. You would block all inbound traffic from SSH you'd block all inbound traffic except SSH and all outbound traffic except SSH. So only SSH would work. And then, so cron tab. So cron tab is one of the ways that you would use for automating scheduled tasks on Linux. So a big one that I could think of is updating. So updating on Linux, it doesn't push it in your face like Microsoft would. Instead, it just allows you to do it whenever you want. So if you spin up a machine, and say you just like spin up like a certain service that you use, and then you like never touch the machine again, you may forget about it, and especially forget about updating it. So you can actually use cron tab to update it like automatically. So if I were to cat out my cron tab file right here, oh, it's not there. Okay. Originally I set it up so that updater user I had originally would be here, and so you could actually see like it working, but I don't know where it went. But yeah, so normally, right? It explains it right here. This is like when it will do it. I had it set so it would do it at 3 a.m. every day. That would just be putting on this line 3, just like that. And then everything else would be just these apostrophes. And then it would run the update script that I had, which was literally just sudo apt-get update, and then sudo apt-get upgrade-y. And so Docker hardening. So Docker is, so what Docker does is it's like a virtualization platform. Oh, sorry. It's a virtualization platform that will spawn in containers and not virtual machines. So the difference between a container and the virtual machine is that a virtual machine, it will virtualize a whole other like guest operating system with your service. Docker would only virtualize the service, so you're still using the same kernel as your host. So you can actually run the Docker service in rootless mode with systemd. So what systemd does is it will, or systemd, it's I forget the specific name for it, but it really just manages all the services on your machine. So if I was to do systemd status and then Docker, it's systemctl. Yep. That's my fault. Yeah, systemctl. So this will just tell me that Docker's live, it's going, and then it'll give me some basic logs about it. And then, Yeah, but running it in rootless mode would really be running it as a user. So if I were to wanting to spin up Docker specifically like on this user, right? And so it would run off of this user. I would do -- user, and then, or I'm sorry, I would do start, or actually let me stop Docker really quick so I can show this off. Actually, it may not allow me. I think I have. Oh, that's not what I, okay. Okay. Yeah, okay. But like, yeah, so what you would do to spin up a service with systemd is you would just go like this, then start, and then whatever the service name is, Docker, and then you do -- user. And then that would start it only on that specific user and not as root. And then, yeah, this is important to know. I don't think any almost containers would mount this as default, or any compose files would mount this at default, but this var run docker.sock, that's the socket for the actual service. So you wouldn't want that on a virtual machine, or I'm sorry, you wouldn't want that on a Docker container, because then you can actually interact with that on the Docker container and then run commands on your host. Then yeah, you'd also want to harden the systemd unit file. So systemd will read that file, and any specific configuration you make to it, it would read. So I actually have a right here, and then so this would work. Like if I was to replace my Docker file with this, all these configurations would be in place. So some of the big ones are no new privilege. It can't like gain any permissions beyond what you actually give it. So like if it needed to like automate and do something, it would rather like crash and die instead of giving it itself the ability to do that. And then all these other ones too. And then so for hardening Docker containers specifically, the same thing we did for the systemd service, you can actually run Docker containers only on your user as well by using the -u flag. So yeah, not running them as root. And you can also do the same no new privileges thing. And you never want to use privileged, because that will give the Docker container like full access to your kernel and then basically your entire machine. And then setting a read-only file system is also good for specific cases, because, you know, say an attacker did get in to your Docker container, but only your Docker container, they couldn't really do anything because it's a read-only file system. And then Docker hardening X2. So you also would want to import resource limits. So if you just like do like a Docker run command, you can just add these like kind of after the fact as arguments. So you can declare the memory, how many CPUs it's allowed to use, and actually how many processes it can have. So you can limit the processes with the -PIDs. And then seccomp profiles. What you can do is you can actually restrict the amount of like system calls it will. So system calls, I can't remember any of them off the top of my head actually, but what they do is they interact with your kernel directly. So normally Docker by default they have like a good like hardened file for this, but in case you wanted to make like any other changes, you would use the seccomp profiles inside Docker. You can also just use AppArmor again inside the container as well. Yep. You can also use the Docker compatibilities thing I was talking about earlier and actually break down the specific root privileges to the only things you need. As far as to go back into my, oh no, that's the wrong one. It's the compose. There we go. So like right here, this is dropping everything, so it cannot use any kind of like pseudo privileges, including breaking down, and then you can just like add them back after the fact with the ones you need, like this one up here with the netbind service. And then protecting the .env file. So for most of the, so if you have like a Docker compose file, it's going to come with a .env file. That's where most people would put like their secrets, like their passwords, or like anything else of that nature. And so yeah, you'd want to lock it down. The best permission to actually give it would be 640. So the owner of the file, which would either be root or the user you created it with, can read and write to it. And then the same group that they're a part of can read it. And most of the time, if we actually look, the group will just be the same as your user. That's why each group gets created when you create another user as well. So it's really just your user again being able to read it, and then nobody else can do anything to it with the zero flag, or the zero permission. Then log files. So there's really only 2 log files of note. There's auth.log and then audit.log. So auth.log will actually like basically log everything, and audit.log is only like kernel level auditing. And so you can actually use journal CTL to specifically look for that. So if I were to do journal CTL by itself, right, it would just give me a whole bunch of logs. Say I only wanted like SSH logs. I would pipe that all into a grep command, which grep, it can basically just like pull certain like strings of text, including like the whole text link from those files, and then you would grep. So if I only wanted SSH stuff, boom, now I've only grep things that have SSH in it. So yeah, user disconnected from this IP, or closed, or stopping SSH and starting it again, and just everything like that. Yep.
Real quick, I'm a caveman that loves piping things in the grep, but with journal control in particular, it's often useful to use the -g, which is the same thing essentially. Right? It takes the same syntax as grep, but then you can also use other flags to like say you only want to see certain time windows and stuff on top of that without needing to pipe it in the grep over and over doing that.
I actually didn't know that. That's awesome.
-G.
-G. And then file integrity management. So what file integrity management is it'll basically associate a certain hash with all your files and everything that's in them. And so if any of these files are like deleted or recreated or edited in any sort of way, that hash would change, and then you would know, something happened to my file. If you just like, if it was you who changed it, then it'd be fine. But if it was anybody else, that'd be a little weird. So you can actually use this thing called AID. And so AID is just like local file integrity management. So I can actually, in it right here. Oh, okay, that just didn't work. Well, okay, this worked earlier. Or no, sorry, that was. Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry, that just didn't work. Neither of the initializing commands worked, so I'm sorry I can't show that off. But yeah, so you can use AID for the file integrity monitoring, and you can also make a cron tab like I was supposed to show with the updater user. But you can use that to schedule AID scans as well. And then you can also send them. Like you can send them to like an email, because like they're pretty small. Like a whole like desktop, like my whole desktop, right? Like everything on it, like all my different packages and stuff, right? This would only be around like maybe like 500 megabytes, and so yeah, that's not big at all. So yeah, you can really send that wherever you want, or you could just keep it locally on the system. But if you do keep it locally on the system, people can make changes to it or edit it or delete it, and then there goes all your integrity. And so some hardening benchmarks. There's sys. Sys is really like used everywhere. It has a bunch of different like standards and checklists for a bunch of different operating systems and distros of Linux. And then there's STIG. So STIG is what most military and governments used that I found. It secures it so well it starts to actually like break things and break usability. So yeah. Yeah.
I used to get in fights with the lab head on our previous team over like, no, I'm not implementing all the STIGs because then this thing's brick.
And a cool thing with these benchmarks is there's actually a tool called Linus. Or no, it's not Linus. It was no, I think it was actually Linus. Yeah, Linus. So you can use Linus, and then you can audit just your entire system, and this will like run down like your whole system, and then give you like a report on anything you might need to change or anything you might want to check on. And systemd also has a function like this too. It's actually really cool. I just found out about it the other day. But yeah, I'll show that after. Actually, I don't need to run this. But yeah, so systemd, right? Say if I wanted to look at my SSH server, or really just my computer as a whole, right? Sudo systemctl dash. Oh, I'm having another brain fart. I cannot remember. I'm actually gonna look this up. Sorry, I'm actually gonna look this up because I can't remember what it was. I have. I checked. Here, actually, I should check history. That's a good. Thank you. No, it's not here. Oh wait, hold on. I think. Wait, no, it's not. Sorry, I can't remember. System D. Yeah, okay, here it is. System D analyze security. So this one, if you run this, no, that's not what I want. System D dash analyze and then security. This will give you like a checklist with emojis for each one of your services. So yeah, most of mine are unsafe or exposed, but some of them are okay. And then you can actually dive deeper into it. Say if I wanted to do then SSH, right? It'll give me specific things to change in SSH and then an exposure score, which is pretty cool. And then, yeah, that's it. That's my talk.
So you had a question from Discord.
Oh.
So I'll put this one on the mic. So where did you, well, one, when did you start learning how to use Linux? And two, when did you learn how to secure it?
Oh, so I've been using Linux since I was about 11 or 12. I actually played a game called Watch Dogs 2, and then I thought that it was pretty cool, and then I tried to like learn how to hack, and I started off on like Kali Linux and stuff, just in a VM. But that was really where I got my start with Linux. Securing Linux actually came from Cyber Patriot. Like that's where I really started to like learn a bunch of stuff. Yeah, Cyber Patriot. That's like a whole like competition. That's like nationwide. It's run by the Air Force, and so like different teams can compete. Like it's mostly schools, or it can be like I saw Boy Scout programs as well. They would compete in it, and you would just secure operating systems. There's Linux, and then Windows Server, and then Cisco Packet Tracer. Yeah, they had Fedora at some point. They like to change it up in like the state and semifinals. But yeah, that is about it.
Any other questions for the speaker?
Nope. Yep.
Do you have your own personal checklist or a checklist that you'll download whenever you want to secure a new system? Like if you wanted to reinstall Linux?
I probably should. that would probably be smart. Normally, I would just pull from others. If you look up like Linux checklist, you can find like a ton of them.
Gotcha.
And most of them will say the same thing. But yeah, I should definitely probably do that. That's a good idea.
I'm posting a resource list inside of the schedule.
Oh, thank you.
You'll have something.
Claude, secure my crap.
Computer analysis.
No mistakes, please.
Any other
No
questions?
mistakes.
That guy knows how to prompt.
Prompt engineer.
All right, I think you're good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take this.
It's time to say goodbye. Hello, it means goodbye. You will soon learn what it means to say